Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we'll be talking to Mr. Kishore Chandra Deo, a former Minister for Tribal Affairs and Panchayati Raj in the previous UPA regime, who has immense experience of the big debate that this country has been seeing over the last 5 years, environment versus development. He has been Minister for Tribal Affairs. He was chairman of the Joint Parliamentary Committee which built the framework for what we call the Forest Rights Act today. He has also dealt with environment issues, minerals, mines. He comes from Andhra Pradesh, represents the Lok Sabha constituency in the tribal areas, forested areas. So welcome to our show, Mr. Kishore Chandra Deo. Well, the reason why we wanted to have you here is to really understand, in continuity, where are we in this big debate on environment versus development? You were minister in the UPA regime for both tribal affairs and Panchayati Raj, and there was a lot of pain even in the UPA regime when it tried to find a golden balance between environment and development. As a result, a lot of criticism of the UPA that many projects got stuck, mining projects, coal mining projects got stuck due to environmental considerations. You were very much in the middle of those debates. And now, with the new regime, a lot of things are happening which, again, the criticism is that it's going overboard, giving clearances, not looking at environmental considerations. So, could you explain to us the broader framework? Where are we?
See, first of all, we must understand when we talk about development, we must understand what we mean by the word development.
Yeah.
At least as far as the UPA government is concerned, we've always held the view that the government has always been for inclusive growth and development, which means the process of development should include everybody. Meaning the most exploited sections of society, the most neglected sections of society also should be a part of the process of development. Now you will appreciate the fact that you see most of these areas, now when we talk of development, I think now it specifically points to mining.
Yeah, the current debate is on whether the forest economy, how do you exploit the forest economy without really sort of exploiting the tribals?
Absolutely. So actually, you see, as far as environment is concerned, I don't think there's any country which wants to destroy its environment.
Sure.
In fact, this environment ministry was created to protect the environment, to see that basic norms are adhered to, and to see that so-called development does not destroy environment. And certain other biospheres that we have, these are all treasures which have been gifted to us by nature.
Sure.
To ensure that these are protected, and that when industrialization takes place or development takes place, we did not sort of lose these things which we've inherited. I mean, because once they're gone forever. Yeah. Now, the tribal...
So the Forest Rights Act came as a result of this debate, right?
No, Forest Act did not come as a result of this debate. In fact, you see, the tribals and other forest dwellers have been living in these forested areas, not for decades, but for centuries. Now, their rights were never regularized. These are all unsurveyed areas. You see, during British times, where the colonial rulers were there, in 1927, they brought the Indian Forest Act. And just by notification of a gazette, these forest areas or forest lands were declared, saying that these were forest lands. And the people who were living over there, they were termed encroachers. Till today, the forest department calls them encroachers, whereas it was actually the other way around.
The owners were called encroachers.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is actually when the Forest Right Act came in, because this was something which we had promised in a manifesto. And this was actually correcting a historic injustice which had been done to the tribals and to the forest dwellers.
And it flowed from our constitutional guarantee to the...
Yes, you see, because in Constitution we recognize the sort of the status of the tribal people who were in the Constitution found a place in the name of scheduled tribes.
Yeah.
There were no scheduled tribes before the Constitution came into being.
Right.
Now each state has its own list because there are different tribes who are living in different regions and states.
This is about 10% of India's population?
Now we are 10% of the country's population. So this was actually sort of regularizing a pre-existing right which the tribals and the forest dwellers had.
Okay.
So it's not a sort of a mela or a bonanza where free land was distributed.
It's like enshrining in law their historical rights that already existed.
Yes, and all other lands in the country were surveyed except the forest lands. And those who were living in these forested areas were living presumably out with the mercy of the forest department and other revenue authorities. Okay. So this had to be corrected. So therefore the Forest Right Act was enacted. It was a landmark enactment. I think it gave a ray of hope to all the forest dwellers and tribals.
What, 120 crores? If you say 10% of the population would be about 120 crores?
Yes, definitely. Yes. I think in the latest census it would be about 120 crores.
And sir, this very act that you said you enacted to, in some ways, codify the rights of the forest dwellers, it was described by the big business as coming in the way of development. Now, isn't this the essential debate?
No, of course it is the debate, because you see, after all, as I said at the very outset, when you talk of development, are you talking of these people or not? Yeah. Or are we talking of a kind of development which excludes this section of society? Yeah. So development is not only meant for corporate business houses or for big mining lobbies or for the mining mafia who have been very, very active of late. So development is a process which should include all. And after all, these are pre-existing rights which they've already had over there. And see, this is a problem, let me mention, which was there in several other countries of the world also. Yeah. And many countries have come to terms with this reality. They've signed agreement. In Australia, they had a problem and finally they signed an agreement. Other countries in Latin America.
With the indigenous population.
With the indigenous population in New Zealand and Africa. Africa is still grappling with this problem. So this is a problem which exists everywhere. And therefore, we took a step forward when we brought in this legislation. But ours being a system that we have, see, this is a federal subject. Yeah. So though we enacted this legislation, the implementing authorities were and are the state governments. State governments, because you see,
so it was implemented in different ways, with different degrees of efficiency by different states.
Absolutely. You see, because originally, I must mention here that you see, after the law was enacted, it took 1 year for the rules to be framed. And rules are framed not by Parliament. So I don't know what forces went into framing these rules and what pressures were there. But when I took over charge, I found that many of the rules were not actually compatible to the essence and spirit of the Act.
This is one big criticism, how the rules are not compatible with the spirit of the Act. And now, even under this government, BJP government, people say that a lot of executive diktats are being issued which go against the spirit of the Forest Rights Act.
But when after I took over as minister in the UPA government, I did amend and change these rules. We had issued fresh guidelines.
Even during UPA time, you found many rules were not compatible with the spirit of the Act.
In fact, all that has been changed was the UPA rule when I was minister.
Okay.
So in fact, the rules which need amendment, they had to be placed before Parliament. Others could be done under Section 12. We had to issue fresh guidelines to different states, which we did. And then I had also written to the governors of many states, especially the states which have 5th schedule areas, because governors have special powers in these states. I had myself written to the chief ministers. We widely circulated these new rules and guidelines. Senior officials of my ministry at that time had gone.
So the governors did issue rules and guidelines as per your...
No, I had sort of made the governors aware of the rules and guidelines and the changes that were made and requested them to take a proactive role where it was necessary, because Many of these were actually guaranteed to the scheduled tribes and to the forest dwellers through constitutional provisions, Article 244 and the 5th schedule.
Yeah.
And naturally, the implementing authorities ultimate had to be the state governments.
Yeah.
And as you rightly mentioned it yourself, different states implemented in a different manner.
Like which are the states mainly where such Schedule 5 considerations kick in there?
You see, there are 9 states which have Schedule 5 areas. Now, within the 9 states, it was not party-wise. I would not blame or praise any political party. But depending upon the situation in these respective states, you see the manner in which they implemented varied according to their interpretation or their understanding.
We'll take a small break here and come back to this discussion. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. So you were talking about how UPA regime tried to find this golden mean or balance between environment and development, and of course you went through a lot of pain. And it's also a fact that you could not take a decision on a lot of projects which got stuck one way or the other. You have to take a decision one way or the other, right? So now, I assume that the confusion was genuine, and there was a lot of introspection on how to go about drawing this balance. But the new government which has come in has cleared all these projects in a jiffy, and it has gladdened the hearts of the big business. So how do you assess this? And the new government, some of the environmentalists are also saying that the new government has, the NDA government has used a lot of executive diktat, fiat to possibly get around the Forest Rights Act or the Environment Protection Act. Now, how do you see it?
Now, let me first clarify certain basic issues. The clearances are given actually by the Environment Ministry.
Sure.
The Tribal Affairs Ministry is just about a little more than a decade old. And Forest Right Act is something which has just come in.
Yeah.
In fact, the Tribal Affairs Ministry was a part of the Home Ministry originally.
Yeah.
When it was detached from Home, it went into Social Welfare and Justice before it became a separate ministry.
Yeah.
So, in fact, the clearances were given by the Environment Ministry. And the Tribal Affairs Ministry has no practical role to play.
Although you would be in the cabinet, you would make your views.
These are not decisions that are taken by the cabinet. Though views are made clear in the cabinet when such an issue arises, or through correspondence, or through notes to a cabinet colleagues.
Where you made your position clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Now here you see there are 2 or 3 issues which I want to actually highlight. One is you see this 5th schedule areas which we've been talking about, which we've referred to earlier. 5th schedule areas are protected by the Constitution.
That is true.
Now these are areas where actually only a person belonging to a scheduled tribe in that particular state can either own land or take land on lease. Because every state has its own list of scheduled tribe. So I belong to a scheduled tribe, but I cannot go to a state where my tribe is not scheduled. Like in the northeast or in Madhya Pradesh or Chhattisgarh, and I cannot buy or take land on lease. Now, what has been happening is, it's in some way or the other, private companies which are not either controlled by scheduled tribes or owned by scheduled tribes are somehow trying to find the way into these mining areas which are located within Schedule 5 areas, which is actually...
Was Niyamgiri within Schedule 5?
Niyamgiri was also, I think that was also the Schedule 5 area. This totally violates constitutional provisions, number one. Number two, then you have the Forest Right Acts. Before the Forest Right Acts, Forest Right Act was enacted in 1996, there was an act called Panchayati Extent Scheduled Areas, popularly known as the PESA. So according to PESA, in the scheduled areas, if any activity was to be conducted within a scheduled area, actually the approval of the Gram Sabha was necessary. And Gram Sabha means not of the Panchayat but of every living habitation.
Which happened in the case of in Niyamgiri.
You see, in Niyamgiri, actually, what happened?
Vedanta, where 10 or 11 Gram Sabhas.
You see, what happened in the Vedanta case was, Supreme Court had given an order that Gram Sabha should be held to verify whether Niyam Raja was of any spiritual value. See, Niyam Raja is the name of the Niyam Rajas whom the tribals there, the Dongriya Kons worshipped.
Yeah.
And Niyamgiri was supposed to be a hill which was of spiritual value to them. So the Supreme Court had said that there should be Gram Sabhas and you should verify from the people whether it has any spiritual connotations attached to it.
And the people there voted against it.
They voted against for it, but you see what happened there was also not very, what was not done in a regular manner. There are two issues here. One is that they held Gram Sabhas only in about 10 villages, 10 or 12 villages.
Yeah, 10 or 12. Yeah.
10 or 12, stating that these were the only villages which would have been affected by this particular mining or the plant which was to come up. But you see, my point is, if they are going to have if you're going
referendum,
to have, it's a kind of a referendum. It's a kind of a referendum. We are going to have Gram Sabhas to pass resolutions, whether this is of spiritual value or not. You see, spiritual value is not only for those Dongriya Kons living in those 10 or 12 panchayats, but it's of that's importance for all the Dongriya Kons living in that entire region. So first of all, it was wrong to do it only in 10 or 12 Gram Sabhas, who of course negated it. That apart, you see, if these are all 5th schedule areas. Now the 5th schedule is a part of the constitution. I think it's only the parliament which has the power to amend or to change it, not even the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is the guardian of the Constitution, but Supreme Court does not have the power to amend the Constitution.
So what is the way out?
So what I am trying to say is even a Gram Sabha resolution cannot negate a constitutional provision.
Okay, they cannot.
They cannot.
You're saying that even the Gram Sabha had said yes.
Yes. Not only 10, but even if all the Gram Sabha said yes, you cannot allow somebody who doesn't have any locus standard
to come. Change the law essentially.
You have to change the law. You see, because Vedanta is not a scheduled tribe. Vedanta doesn't belong to a scheduled tribe community.
Sure.
Neither is it controlled by scheduled tribes or owned by scheduled tribes. Now here the argument was that the Orissa Mining Corporation, which is actually owned by Orissa, had given it to Vedanta. You know, it was some indirect manner in which they struck a kind of a deal. But you see, whether it's the Orissa Mining Corporation or the Andhra Pradesh Mineral Development Corporation or any other corporation.
The Madhya Pradesh Mineral Development Corporation.
These are all corporations which are registered under the Companies Act. So none of these corporations are arms or departments of the government.
Yeah.
So you see, you give them this the land on lease. But tomorrow, if this company wants to sell off shares of these companies to these very people, I don't think the state government or the parliament would have any say over it, because companies, directors can meet together and they can sell off the shares. So in other ways, this is a way of subverting the constitutional provisions, which is highly objectionable. So I had written...
In fact, as you say this, I recall that even the 214 odd coal mines that the Supreme Court has cancelled as illegal recently, of them, a large number, but I guess 60 to 70 mines, have been given away by state mining corporations in joint ventures to private parties. These are not the ones that are centrally cleared through the screening committee process.
Yeah, but you see, even the joint ventures, the state government can give it provided all other conditions have been cleared in non-scheduled 5 areas. But in scheduled 5 areas, in scheduled areas, I don't think that it's within the state government's powers to give it to private companies or companies coming from abroad.
And yeah,
so this way, see, this is actually an affront on the constitution. This is actually throwing to winds all other legislations which exist, the already land protection laws which exist.
So is it still? I mean, do you see improvement in the situation, or do you still see violations occurring at the state level? Or
no, I still see violations occurring, and now there's a there's a kind of an attempt by all these forces to get together and to subvert all existing laws, to go ahead with the mining, and this will be at the expense of our constitutional safeguards, at the expense of all the existing laws which are there to protect the forest dwellers and the tribals living over there, and ultimately this will make them homeless, deprive them of all their renewable livelihood resources, of the habitat, of the homes, and this, I think, singularly is the main cause for our unrest which is there in these areas. I think the
So you're saying that politically this issue remains unresolved?
it is not only unresolved.
It cannot be treated as a pure growth instrumentality where
No.
unless you exploit these, you can't have 8.5%, 9% growth.
So see, I think
so you're saying that's a wrong debate, isn't it?
I think we should have a white paper presented by the government on what development has taken place in areas which have already been mined. A lot of mining has been done in Orissa.
And a lot of illegal mining has been done.
Precisely. So
I believe 100,000 illegal mines.
I have no count of it, maybe 100,000 or even more. So wherever such mining has taken place, whether it's in Karnataka, whether it's in Andhra, whether it's in Orissa, whether it's in Goa.
What's happening there?
Whether it's in Jharkhand, whether it's in your Chhattisgarh. I said, why don't we have a white paper? And I think people of this country have a right to know what kind of development is.
So essentially what you're saying that there have been so many violations already,
Yes.
illegalities.
Yes.
You're saying first, please review these illegalities before committing more illegalities.
Yes,
right?
and you see, development may have actually, the beneficiaries may have been half a dozen people or a dozen people, handful of people in other words.
Yeah.
And what has been the condition of people who have been living in these regions and areas? And what amount of money has the state got out of this to carry on its development? I think one needs an account.
But when you and the UPA, did UPA do an assessment of this? Or did it attempt it? Or
No, this kind of an assessment was not made at all. But you see, I had raised it time and again. And probably the time was also too short for it. But I think this kind of a thing requires to be done. Yes.
And the coal ordinance that came recently, how do you assess that to deal with all the all the illegal mines which have been cancelled by the Supreme Court? They have to be auctioned. Many of them are also illegally allotted. How do you deal with that?
I think you have to. You see, there's a gamut of things which you'll have to look into. First, the tribal areas, the scheduled areas. Second, you have to look at the other land laws of the state, of the central government, the Forest Right Act. Forest Right Act doesn't apply only to scheduled areas. There are forests also in non-scheduled areas.
Non-scheduled areas. Yeah.
Like, for example, in Orissa.
That's why it's called other forests.
No, that is other traditional forest dwellers.
Okay.
Because apart from the scheduled tribes, others also have been given an opportunity to claim.
So how do you? So what's the way forward?
You see, the way forward is to follow the existing laws and the constitution. Nothing new needs to be done. Your mindset has to change.
Mindset has changed.
Exploitation has to stop. And you have to draw a line between this kind of illegal and unscrupulous freebooters from coming into these kinds of sensitive regions. I think this is one of the main reasons why you have the extremist problem in most of these areas. It's not a matter of mere coincidence that wherever these issues are prevalent, you also have the extremist problem.
The other issue, Mr. Deo, is that you were Minister of Panchayati Raj. Even this government pays lip service to Panchayati Raj, but all decisions are getting centralized. The decision to whether to exploit certain resources in forest areas or some minerals, which needs to be taken at the level of the people there. Now, again, we are back to bureaucracy, district forest officers recommending to the centre, and what should be done. A decentralized decision making now coming back to being centralized. Is that a trend you're also seeing?
You see, things are not very, very clear yet, but it will be really unfortunate and sad if that's going to be the trend now, because in fact I had taken a lot of measures to ensure that Gram Sabhas are given a role of primacy as far as the village issues are concerned. In fact, I had sent a circular to all the state governments saying that they should hold a minimum of 4 or maybe half a dozen Gram Sabhas. That Mahila Sabha should also be.
Is that happening?
Some states are doing it. Some states are doing it.
So essentially it's all happening at the state level. So some states which want to do it, they're doing it. So,
that's right.
So if that is the situation, I guess it's good for the centre to, it can go and...
No, the centre has to play a catalytic role, enlighten them, keep reminding them. And you see, I had also...
No, what I'm saying that if, say, states who are not doing it, it's a loophole which the centre can now exploit. The centre can say the states are not doing it, so what can we do? So
that's true, but you see, actually what the centre should be doing is to sensitize those states to ensure that they do...
So that responsibility is that of the centre?
It's of the centre, and you see, let me tell you my experience, that there was no state government which was actually hostile or negative to these ideas.
Okay. So they were generally receptive.
They were generally very, very
So they need to be implemented. All these laws, essentially you're saying these laws have to be implemented.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kishore Chandra Deo, for talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.